I miss that sexy smile, looking for the scene.
See this? But before the music came on, there was no music. And I was just kind of doing my thing. And Tyler's like, you warming up there? He doesn't know that I dance through life. Doesn't know me that well yet, but he's getting there. Welcome, everyone. It's a very, very happy Friday. We have a very special guest. I'm going to intro him in just a second. I want to welcome you. I also have a very special announcement later in the show. Everyone's excited. Okay, so today we have Jesse Kelly. We're going to get to him in a second. But I have to remind you before we get to Jesse that there are crazy people out there. It's very important that you remember. This is your daily reminder that not everyone is all up, has it all going on up there. Let's go to a video, Tyler, to manifest what we're talking about. I just want to show you, this is 2022, September. Somebody's doing this. Let's take a look. This is in Italy. This guy's in a mask in the water. There's no one around him. He's swimming. The mask is probably wet. And he thinks this is normal. So I just want to remind you, this is still happening, right? So when we talk about the crazy, when we talk about the people who never got over the COVID hysteria, when we talk about the fact that something snapped for some up there, just snapped, it's not going to reconnect, that's done. That is your image for the day. So just think about that throughout your day. When I'm talking about crazy people and you're like, oh, Jed, just remember that. That's all you need. All right. So today we have Jesse Kelly. If he really needs no introduction, I'm going to be honest, but I'm going to give him one because he deserves it. And he dressed up for me, which is wonderful. So he deserves an even better introduction. He is the host of the Jesse Kelly Show. Those of you who listen to it, it's fantastic. It really is. This guy is really funny. I don't know how he got so funny. We're going to have to talk about that too. That comes out of Houston, Texas. He's also host of I'm Right. Apparently he's right about everything on the First TV. And he has a really interesting background. He was born into a construction family. So if you need something fixed, this is your guy. Give him a call. Shout him out on Twitter. Maybe he can help you out. I can't screw in a light bulb. Do not call me. Call him. He joined the Marine Corps in the year 2000. He deployed to Iraq as an infantry Marine during the Second Persian Gulf War. He ran for Congress, you may remember, in Arizona in 2010 with no political experience. That's how I like it. I only like politicians that have no political experience, honest truth. And he did very well in a Democrat district. He launched his radio career not that long ago in 2018, and he has since blown up. On Twitter, I mean, he's blowing up everywhere. And the reason is that he's actually saying how he really feels, which is something that is few and far between in media, where we have a bunch of talking heads that just regurgitate nonsense oftentimes. He tends to make everyone mad, which I love because I do as well. We share that skill set. And he's here today to talk to us about some of his more controversial viewpoints on things. Welcome, Mr. Jesse Kelly. Thank you for dressing up. I didn't get the memo about dressing up to my own show, but I am very glad that you did. So thank you for being here.
Well, you're the one who's blowing up. I want your job. I'm dressing for the job I want, like my dad always said.
There you go. There you go. Well, I want to get right into it. For audience, I just want to let you know, first of all, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. We only have Jesse for a half hour today. He's a busy man. He's got several shows to do today. So I'm going right into the meat of the matter. But if you have questions, you have comments, please get in there. Make your voices heard. Jesse, I'm going to go right in. No time for small talk today because you're a busy man. So the country's falling apart, right? You and I both know that. There are people who refuse to acknowledge that. We've watched what happened in the last 2 years with COVID mania. We watched the lockdowns. We watched the vaccine mandates. I got into politics around 2010 when the Tea Party movement had risen up. And what I loved about it is that it was an organic movement. And those were people who, yes, were challenging the left, but they were also really, really challenging the right. They had a problem with establishment Republicans who didn't care about the national debt, who didn't really care about issues like taxation. And they felt like they needed to jolt them into being awake again, into maybe caring about these things, or to get them out of office. Let's get rid of these. So I want to talk about the state of the right now with you first, because we're coming off a time period with all of these vaccine mandates where there was deafening silence among a lot of Republicans. I mean, Ron DeSantis is front and center on these issues, but where is everyone else? So what is your perception of the right now? Do we need like a second wave of a Tea Party movement to oust all these establishment Republicans? What do we do here?
What we need is what we're actually getting. We're just not going to get it near as fast as we need to get it. Not near as fast as you want it, not near as fast as I want it. What we have right now is we have a right that is completely useless, weak. I call them the low T GOP. That's really what they are. And I'll correct you on something. They weren't silent when it came to COVID. They were compliant. They were out there telling people. Republicans were just as bad as Democrats when it came to freedom. People seem to want to forget that the country turned into a tyrannical place for 2 years. We were arresting pastors for having church. We arrested paddleboarders out in the ocean paddleboarding. They sent police boats after the man. We turned into a tyranny for 2 years, and Republicans helped. I'm in Texas. My governor is Greg Abbott. I remember Greg Abbott press conferences talking about the percentages he'll allow in restaurants and bars as if he's some sort of little king who's able to bestow the right to earn a living on us. What we have is a GOP that is completely useless. Now, it is changing. That's the bad news. The good news is it is changing. Slowly but surely, the old low-T GOP types are retiring. They're getting primaried out. But it'll take 10, 20 years to get rid of the rest of these losers so we can finally go on to be anti-communists as we should. The frustration you see out there is people don't have an alternative, right? You have these loser Democrats who are full-blown communists now. They're all in with big tech and the FBI to crush you, crush your rights, lie to you about COVID and other things. And what you want is some kind of bold opposition, but you don't have a bold opposition. You have okay, I guess they're kind of wrong, guys. Let's have a hearing. And that's all you get out of our side. And that's not good enough for me. It's not good enough for you. It's not good enough for your audience.
Yeah. And, I think part of the challenge was that media was so complicit. They were tied into big pharma this whole time. So everyone that had a big microphone and was sitting on a conventional platform was like, what do I do? How do I navigate this maze? And there were very few people with big microphones that were just like, I don't care. Like, this is beyond the pale. I need to speak up. I think the good news, though, Jesse, is a lot of people really woke up. I mean, I said this on your show. I really was jolted into just wisdom throughout this process because I was, existing in the slumber of cable news and network TV, and I was in those spaces, and I needed something to kind of jolt me into how serious this all was. And when I saw what was going on with COVID with the kids, and it was just going on, and then the vaccine comes out and there's a mandate that you have to inject your body with something experimental or lose your job, I was done. I was like, whatever fire needed to be lit inside of me was lit bigger and bolder than I think I ever thought possible. So the good news is I think there's a lot of people like me who were kind of falling asleep a little bit and now are wide awake. Do you hear from those people every day on your show? Do you feel like there is a fair number of them that are now going to be outspoken in the voting booth and whatnot?
I hear from them all the time, and it's actually what gives me hope. People think I'm pessimistic because I think our country as a whole is screwed, and I do. All our natural systems are probably corrupted and rotted beyond fix. But that doesn't mean we're done at all, because there are so many tens of millions of Americans who are awake now, because that's always what we've needed. We've told ourselves on the right this lie for so long. So many traditional conservative things we've learned have been lies, and they've actually handicapped us and helped the communists. One of the biggest lies the right has spouted for years is we are the silent majority. We're the silent majority. We're the silent majority. Yeah, the reason you're silent is you're losing. You're getting your teeth kicked in because of your silence. You want to go raise a family, go to church on Sunday, go to your job, go do your things, and all those things are fine. You should do all those things. But while you were doing those things, the communists were taking over your school boards, your university. They even took over professional sports. They took over the corporate world. They took over, they took over the freaking Boy Scouts. While you were bragging about being silent, look how silent I am. Mm-hmm. They were busy being loud. And so a tiny percentage of America-hating scumbags now run all of our cultural institutions. Mm-hmm. And we were silent. We're the silent majority. We're going to be fine. And then the St. George Floyd riots were what really woke up a lot of people. A lot of people don't go back to that. They go back to COVID. But it was the George Floyd riots that I hear as much from anything else about in my emails of people waking up to how much anti-Americanism there is ingrained in this society now. It wasn't just the BLM animals or the Antifa animals in the streets. People were watching suburban white kids from all over America rally to these cities and crap all over the country. Mm-hmm. And it woke people up to, man, we have a real patriotism problem. And it woke people up. Just like you said, I hear from people, we are winning school boards across the country. Yeah. You don't know it because school board isn't sexy, right? And let's
Right.
be honest, you win your local
Right.
school board race, you're not getting an invite to be on Jedediah Bila's show. It's just
Listen,
the way it works.
I'm down. Tell me who that is. I'll bring him on.
I know you probably would be. That's no insult, but it's not sexy,
Yeah.
right? It's
Right.
just that you don't get
Understood.
on Fox News with that.
That's
but we're
right.
winning them across the country. We are waking up and seizing control of local. There's a lot of local to look forward to right now.
So I want to ask you, because on this note, and I have to admit, when you used to tweet and be like, the communists, I was like, what's this guy? This guy's so dramatic. And now I'm like, the communists. I'm right there with you, because I really see how far it can go. And the slippery slope is getting very slippery very quickly. But I want to take a look at some tweets that were very controversial from you. You took a lot of heat from people on the right as well. I know you had an exchange with Glenn Beck that people should go check out that was really, really interesting and compelling. Let's take a look at this one. I'm going to group these as a 3. I want to do all 3, Tyler. I'll read them. First one is, warrants should be being issued as we speak to have Democrat homes raided in districts with red judges and red sheriffs. Communists are religious zealots. All religious zealots understand is fear and pain. This will not stop until they're afraid. Then you say, you have, this is not back to back, but nonetheless, well, maybe it was back to back. Oh no, it was a little bit removed. You have no idea the kind of authoritarian I'd support if it means stopping the communists. This is not an insult. I want a monster now. That one went viral. A lot of people took issue with it. And this recent one, I believe this was yesterday, or pretty close to it, in response to the New York AG ordering Steve Bannon to be walked in front of the media. You said this doesn't stop until red areas and red DAs start arresting Democrats on television. There is no appeal to norms or principles that will make this stop. Make them afraid of it happening to them, or this gets much worse from here. Today it's Bannon, tomorrow it's you. So talk a little bit about what you mean when you say that you would support an authoritarian, because to a lot of people on the right, that became a no, right? That was, we immediately said, well, no, we can't become them. We won't be able to criticize them if we become them. We won't be able to remove evil if we become evil. So talk a little bit about where you're coming from on that.
Well, first of all, I'm not interested in criticizing the communists. I'm interested in defeating the communists. That's one. 2, I don't want an authoritarian, Jedediah. That's not what I want at all. I want a small, tiny government, and I want to live in the land of the free. That's what I want. But God didn't give me a choice. Did you get a vote? Did he come down and ask you what period of time you live in? If my only 2 options are have some kind of Franco-like authoritarian, which I don't want, but have some Franco-like authoritarian rise on the right to run these communists out of my society, or my option B is I live in a nation where doctors will publicly advertise their services to remove the penis of teenage boys and breasts of teenage girls, and then hold up the newly mutilated child on social media, not only brag about it, but make a fortune doing it. If that's the society we're going to descend into, and my choice is that or Franco, bring on El Caldillo, because that's no choice at all for me. I will not live in a society where we murder babies by the million. I will not live in a society where we sexually abuse children, where we groom them, where we treat old people like crap, where we have become this perverted, degenerate filth out there. I will not live in that kind of country, and I'm not alone in that. Mm-hmm. I don't want an authoritarian. I want all this evil to stop. But this evil, because it is evil, it's not wrong or bad or liberal or left. That's evil. That's demonic. Because it's evil, you're never going to criticize it or call it a hypocrite or do any of the things that conservatism has been and make it stop. They're not worried about being hypocrites. They're not worried about being criticized. They're worried about victory. They're worried about their evil defeating your good, their darkness defeating your light. The only thing that will make religious zealots stop, and all these LGBTQ stuff, BLM, climate change, that they're all just cultural Marxists now. They're all communists. They just changed the branding of it all. The only thing that has ever made these people stop is fear and pain. You think you get mad when Donald Trump gets his home raided. They can't do this. Can you imagine if a Republican did? That's what we get from the right. Yeah. Name me one Democrat congressman that had his door kicked in by a SWAT team after that happened. Mm-hmm. Not one.
See,
they're not worried about hypocrisy. They're worried about victory, and they're busy making it happen.
Yeah. And my problem with that, and I understand where you're coming from with that, my problem is I don't want to live in a society where fear and pain get normalized from the top. First of all, I never would trust an authoritarian. Authoritarians go rogue. And one day you think they're doing one thing and the next day they're doing something different, because an authoritarian is by nature evil. It just is. Anyone who wants to suppress or oppress is by nature evil. But here's my solution, one of them. And we have many problems in this country. One problem I think that can be fixed is what's happening in the blue cities. And my advice to everyone said, oh, you know what? You're from New York City. You should stay there and you should vote these people out. And my response was, you're never going to vote these people out because Fidel Castro wins on the Democrat ticket in New York. It just doesn't matter. There's not enough people with sane minds to get rid of this. So I told everybody, get out of the cities. Get out of them. Get out of the blue cities. Pick up your family, your money, your business. Get up, go to a red city, go to a red state, invest there, make your voices heard, and let those cities sink so deeply that ultimately, in order to pick themselves up, they have to change. There is no other option. And it did happen to New York City once, because Giuliani came in after years and years and years of disgusting filth in New York City. I mean, it was horrible. It was crime infested, and it got so bad that then Giuliani won an election and everything got shaped up and it looked pretty good for a while. So it can happen even in a place like New York City. That's my number one. Then you also have to address, though, the hands that are being held between big pharma, between, we talked about FDA and CDC all year. It's all corrupt. And all of that holds hands with big government. I'm not convinced that any authoritarian is going to be able to fix that. So my message on this is that it's just too scary. And I understand what you're saying, that it's not a time to criticize. It's a time to stand up against. It's just too scary to promote authoritarianism of any kind, one. And two, that's not what we're about, right? We want ultimately a free society. So if you advocate for authoritarianism, if you say there's no other choice, right? I don't want authoritarianism, but that's what we're left with, and that has to rise up against authoritarianism, you lose. You lose anyway, because you don't have a free society at the end of the day, right? We all lose. So we have to win in the battle of the ideas. We have to. Ideas, and we have to get people, we have to inspire people to get out of these cities, and they will sink. They will sink, Jesse.
Okay, one, I 100% support you in moving. That is big time true. People need to balkanize, get to a red area, and become an activist when you get to a red area. Fortify it, because I promise you they will come for that area too. That's one. Two, I guess it also depends on what we're discussing when it comes to authoritarian, because freedom is something that Americans fundamentally do not understand. They think they do. And it's odd because they live in the land of the free, but they think they understand it. Land of the free all the time. Ask somebody on the right. Ask somebody, a pundit or a TV radio guy on the right. Ask them how they got their freedom. And inevitably, you know what they'll say? The Constitution. It's the Constitution. Mm-hmm. The Constitution is nothing. The Constitution is a piece of paper. You have your freedom because the people who wanted to take it from you, brave men went and shot them in the face. They went and killed all the guys who wanted to take your freedom, and then they wrote the Constitution. And after a whole lot of blood, they handed you a free country. Freedom is not something you acquire by practicing it. If you want these people to stop assaulting you, stop using the FBI, CDC, so on and so forth, if you want them to stop coming for school board parents, if you want them to stop doing the frightening things you're doing, you're going to have to do something to dissuade them, because I promise they're not going to wake up tomorrow morning in the FBI and say, guys, oh, we do look bad, don't we? Dang. You know what? Let's change our ways. I feel bad. I feel terrible. That day's never going to come. Unless they get stung, unless there is something they fear, there is no stopping them. We're not dealing with bad. We're dealing with evil, and there is no bottom. I see, like we were talking about the trans stuff a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. I see so many people talk about how we're going to reach some bottom, how there's going to be some bottom, and then we'll come out of this whole thing. There is no bottom with demons. There is no bottom. It's trans stuff today. That'll be a distant memory 10 years from now when they're openly promoting pedophilia. They already have a term for it, minor attracted persons. And that won't be the end either. You'll see pedophilia openly depicted in film. It'll go down from there because it's a bottomless pit that doesn't stop until it's stopped by the forces of good, whatever those forces are. I want them to be freedom-loving forces, Jedediah. I don't want some Franco type. But if those are my only two choices, I know what I'm picking.
Yeah, I mean, and I think what you're talking about is like a creeping normality of decay that's happening, right? It becomes,
That's
it's
hard to
shocking
reverse.
at first, and then all of a sudden it becomes the new normal. And I actually had covered on the show videos of people who were justifying pedophilia and saying, "Oh, we shouldn't be mean to them. We shouldn't label them pedophiles. That's a degrading term." I mean, so it is already there, right? We are already at that point. And I think ultimately a lot of this is going to come down to families, parents, people who are looking at the next generation. I have a 2.5-year-old. Everything that I do for him. It's going to come down to people who are saying, what's this going to look like in 30 years? And who have little people around them that are going to be growing up in that world, and they absolutely will not tolerate what's going on. And I think this is going to come from, there's a lot of people that are disgusted, deeply disgusted by what's going on in schools. There's these puberty blockers that, they're advocating giving to children now. They're coming for the kids, Jesse. We know it. They're coming for the kids on the vaccine stuff, with the mandates, with the masks. They are coming for the children. And that brings me to my next topic with you. I want to talk to you about the military and what's going on in the military. Let's go to number 3, Tyler. Jesse is very well known for these tweets that say we're going to lose a major war. I want to do number 3, actually. I want to skip down. I want to skip from 2. If you can pull that. Okay, we're going to lose a major war. This is a tweet you put up. Everybody loves these tweets. I even have chimed in on them one time or another. And this is a tweet that had been posted. It says, from a friend, I'm about to fail my workplace violence prevention training because the test was designed by high school girls. U.S. Navy really striking fear into the hearts of our enemies these days. Apparently, there was some guidance given in the U.S. Navy that a crumpled picture is still workplace violence. We've covered on this show how now people in the Army and the Navy have to listen to woke videos that sound like Sesame Street about pronouns, when instead they should be learning how to go fight to defend. Well, I say to defend freedom. At this point, it's to regain freedom, frankly. Talk to me a little bit about what you see as having been in the military and active duty. What does this do to you when you see this stuff?
Well, I don't think we've been so blessed in America. Just let me filibuster on your own show for a second, Jedediah, if you don't mind. We've been so blessed in America militarily that we think we know what gigantic loss means, like military losses. And we have no idea as a country. People will remember when we lost those 13 brave warriors in Afghanistan and how torn up we all were. I mean, I dang near choked up on the radio that night, just torn up thinking about them. 13 in modern warfare, when you don't have, let's say, the air, when you don't own air power, or you don't have the better Navy, you lose 13,000 in an afternoon. How about an entire carrier group in America at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean? How are you going to feel that next morning? I want people to understand the stakes before I say what I'm about to say. What you're seeing right now is not something that's happening in the distant future. As we speak, your military, the mightiest in the world, is being destroyed before your eyes. The decay is huge. There's two parts of it. There's a hard purge and a soft purge. And the communists are doing this on purpose. It's actually really brilliant, because the first thing any communist country has ever done is purge the military of its political opponents so it can use the military against its political opponents. Well, one, they have a vaccine mandate. Who's going to refuse to take the vaccine, Jedediah? How many Democrats in the military are going to refuse to take the vaccine? Yeah, it's going to be all guys on the right. So they're all kicking them out. That's the hard purge. Now we have the soft purge, and this is back to what you were just talking about. There's 2 parts to it. There's the guys who are in, who don't want to serve under this anymore, and then the guy who would join but doesn't. Men, type A men, that country bumpkin in Louisiana who you love to make fun of, who can go build a hut out of squirrel meat, that guy wins your wars for you. The high school wrestler in Iowa wins your wars for you. All right, those guys win your wars for you. Those guys don't join a military to learn how evil white people are every day, and they don't join the military to have a new transsexual lieutenant. Those guys join for adventure and danger. They join for service and camaraderie. They join for a bunch of type A male stuff. They join so they can look good for pretty girls and hit on Jedediah Bila whenever they see her in a bar. They don't join the U.S. gay military. They do not do it. They will not do it. And I don't give a crap if that offends you, because it's true. And the guys who are in, I'm talking about the real pipe hitters, the guys who are warriors, they're getting out. I know I have stacks and stacks of emails from them. Jesse, I did 12. I can't do anymore. Jesse, I'm counting the minutes. Jesse, all the hard-nosed guys are leaving. and that next generation of hard-nosed guys that would be replacing them, they're not joining. Recruitment numbers are down 50%. We're half of our recruitment numbers for a reason. My sons, look, you asked me 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when I let my sons join? Sure, of course. Now, not in a million years. No, you go do something else. Go serve somewhere else. You're not going to serve that filth. And it's happening so fast that people don't realize it. And so when I say we're going to lose a major war, I'm trying to basically slap people awake to what that looks like. You know what that looks like, right? That could look like an American city in a smoking ruin. That you don't think that can happen? Ask Japan how that can happen when they work their way to you. That's what it looks like in the end. But hey, keep pushing all the LGBTQ filth out there and tell white people how much they suck, and you see what kind of a military you have in the end. It's going to be one that's going to be good for only one thing, attacking Republicans, and that's it.
On that note, can you also just weigh in on women in combat? Because that's another thing that's been pushed heavily. It's not just in combat, frankly. Now we're having conversations about lowering standards for women in places like the fire department and the police department, which is utterly absurd. All of these areas where you need people to be at the top of their game, you can't lower standards. It's just not a thing. But even if women were able to meet the standards, my understanding is that you advocate for not having women in active combat roles. Am I correct? And if so, just explain that a little bit on that note.
Yes, you're 100% correct. They have no place in combat, no place on naval ships, no place in these frontline military units. And this is something that people on the right will say a lot. Well, if they meet the standards, they can do it. They can meet the standards. Okay, they can't meet the standards. Women are smaller, women are weaker. And even if you have one that pops up and is able to do it, some super stud, even then, why are you trying to force feed a woman into a group of men? There is a thing called biology. This is not anti-women. It's not anti-men. There's a thing called biology. Ask a naval guy off record. You always have to get him off record. Ask a naval guy what happened when they decided to put women on deployed naval vessels. It has been an unmitigated disaster, and the Navy has rotted out from underneath us ever since. They all get pregnant on deployment, or they come back with sea bags full of cash. I'll let your listeners use their imagination on that. The drama that comes with that, because you have a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds stuck on a big steel box for 6 months. What's going to happen, Jedediah? You have any idea? I'm pretty sure you know. They're all going to get together and then break apart, and then jealousy and it creates a bad situation with no need. We are not Israel, a country of 8 million people surrounded by people who hate us. There are 330 million Americans. The only reason to force feed women into these roles is to do some I am woman, hear me roar thing and try to earn some votes from somebody. Get them off the naval ships, get them out of the daggone combat units. It's been a disaster. And I don't know why we have to constantly deny reality about all this anyway. Nothing I just said should be controversial at all. There used to be a time where that was the norm, but you can't speak honest truth anymore. It drives me insane.
Well,
Does that answer your question?
You can't speak honest truth because now we have strayed even from basic facts. You can't even say that men and women are different. So you're lost on point one, right? It used to be that, everybody could acknowledge basic biology and basic facts, and then, it would branch out and you'd maybe disagree in the middle of the alphabet. Now you're on point A and they're like, oh no, biology doesn't exist. So it's utterly ridiculous. So to me, it seems that it's increasingly obvious to those with a brain that the destruction in this country is intentional. What's happening right now is intentional. And there's two groups. I tweeted this out yesterday. There's two groups that have been targeted, in my view, primarily. The military, we've just talked about that. It's becoming, a woke reality show as opposed to what it really should be. And children, we talked about that a little bit with the vaccinations, the forced, you have to do this or you can't get into school with the COVID vaccine, even though it was no risk to kids. We've covered the risk as it was to kids. It's really non-existent. We talked about the masking, and now you have children with developmental delays. We talk about big pharma. I mean, big pharma is really it's child abuse, what goes on in many respects with the marketing and what happens as it relates to children. So if the destruction is intentional, and they're very openly now coming for the kids, coming for the military, I ask you, where does this land in 5-10 years? What are we looking at here?
The breakup of the United States of America. That's what it'll be.
What does that look like? How does that happen, and what does that look like to you? Honestly, I think there's people that are serious about that.
I don't know if it's 10 years, but that's what's happening because we're not, and it should happen. I should mention, I don't want anybody to get hurt, not on the left, not on the right, and I don't want violence. I'm worried that'll come. But the truth is, we shouldn't be a country anymore. And I don't celebrate that. I don't cheer for that. But the only reason to be a country is you come together for prosperity and security and you share common values, right? This is like husband and wife getting married. We share common values. If you stop sharing those common values, what happens in a relationship? What happens? Mm-hmm. You're screaming and the cops get called every other night to the house. You shouldn't be together anymore. It's become hostile. Well, that's what we are now. We're not in a country. We're in a cage. We're in a cage. We share two different cultures, and we're going to have to go our separate ways because now we're just going to smash each other until people start getting hurt on a major level. And it's awful, but it was inevitable. We were too complacent. We allowed this cultural Marxist menace to work its way into our society, and now it's here, and now we're going to have to deal with the realities of it. There's still tons of great out there, local and state, we can preserve, though. There's tons of great. Just nationally, it just didn't go our way. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, and I truthfully don't know who, Joe Biden's not going to be, they're not going to put him front and center again. He doesn't even know where he is most days. But I don't know who's going to pop up on the left, and I don't know who's going to pop up on the right. But it needs to be someone who's really willing to really tear down the system because it's so unbelievably far gone at this point. And I always say, truthfully, as a last point, I always say that if the country weren't so, like if the blue states and the red states were separated geographically in a more ideal way, I think that split would have happened already. It's so drastically different. I'm telling you, during COVID, being in New York and then going to Texas, I was like, this is a different planet. This isn't just a different state. This is a different planet. And I think a lot of people realize that and have made just different decisions about where they do and don't want to raise their kids and whatnot. Jesse Kelly, I could talk to you all day. I want to say I'm really grateful that you're out there because you really seem to me someone who is not playing the media game. You're not towing a line because you're supposed to. You're not afraid to upset the left or the right with your honest commentary, and you're very open to people agreeing or disagreeing with you. I think you're a really, really important voice out there right now, and I'm so grateful that you joined us today. And if you ever come to South Florida, please join me. We can sit for a full hour. We can figure out how to fix this mess. We'd love to have you. So thank you for being with us today.
You can count on it. I'll be there. I love South Florida. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. So Jesse is fantastic. And listen, you don't have to agree with everything he says, but this is who's needed right now. I come from a world of just corporate media, and I've talked to you about that so much. Working at The View and Fox News, and you really can't understand how much of a filter is on everyone. I mean, I hate to say it. And, people talk about, oh, well, Tucker. Yes, Tucker does a great job. I get it. There are people who have a lot of power and have a lot of viewers and have a little bit more freedom by virtue of that, 100%. Even they will have their limits. I promise you, there will be limits as to what can and cannot get said because those decisions come from here. Some of them come from here. A lot of them come from here. But what we need, and the reason that I'm in this space, guys, the reason I'm doing this is because what you need is people who are not tethered to any of that, right? I come here and I tell you what I think. End of story. That's really where it ends. I talk to you. I tell you what I think. If I believe that a certain forum won't allow me to speak my mind on a certain issue, I'm going to find another one and I'm going to bring you there. I promise you. So this is a guy who he's just telling you how he feels. We didn't get to some of his controversial tweets on voting. You should look him up. He has some, interesting opinions on who should and shouldn't be voting, but he's saying it, right? He is saying it, and it needs to be said, and his honest opinion needs to be vented out there, right? We need people who are willing to do that. So I'm incredibly grateful for him. I was being sincere about that. And by the way, a lot of people are used to when you're in the cable news sphere and all that, you pop on segments usually for like 3 minutes, right? Somebody says, hey, you want to come on my show? You come on for 3 minutes. So a half hour actually is a chunk of time for him to come on. Podcasting is a little bit different. We sit here for 2 and 3 hours, but it's a very, very different world here. So I'm appreciative to him. So what I want to do is a couple of things. I do want you to get in the chat. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. I want you to get in the chat. Super chats, we are going to read them before the end of the show. I want to talk to you about another topic. Did you guys see, this is important, and I know it will be annoying to some, but it's actually quite important. Did you see the Jennifer Lawrence interview with Vogue a few days ago? I was not going to cover this because it's nauseating. It's very, very vomit-inducing. I'm not going to lie. But when I read it, and I read how vomit-inducing it was, and I also read how political it was very, very political. I said, you know what? We need to cover this because this is a great manifestation of what's going on in media at large, what's going on this is a women's magazine. And I always say women are being targeted. We talk about the female vote. Women largely vote Democrat. They read this nonsense. This is pure, unadulterated. It reads like a bad romance novel. I'm not going to lie. I don't know. I don't even know who the author was here, and I don't care. It's horrible. But it is important because it contextualizes when you say, well, how does a Joe Biden win? This is how. This is how. And I also think it's important to see the divide and how deep the divide is in the country. And when we talk about things like celebrity elitism, that's real. It's real, it's tangible, and you need to feel it. If you say, well, I'm not going to read this. It's a minute, it's 10 minutes of my life I'm never going to get back. I get that sentiment. Believe me, I was there with you on the Joe Biden speech. I was there. I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And then I heard some of it and I was like, I have to do it. I have to do it because I need your antennas up. I need those little porcupine. We always talk about, what are they called? Those little things a porcupine has. It's not thorns. I don't know what it is. Tyler's going to suddenly become a veterinarian. I don't know. Those little things. Quills. I need them up and I need them like, because I'm telling you, they walk all over you if you're not alert. So let's take a look at this interview. Now, what you need to understand is when these interviews come out, it's very Hollywood. What happens is they call you and they do a photo shoot and there's all these images. There's like hairstyle. Look at it. They ask you, where do you want to have the interview? And they pick a location. In this case, first she said she wants to go golfing. Then she said, I don't want to go golfing. I want to go to a spa. So they did the interview with the spa. Half of the interview was at a spa while they're getting like seaweed wraps or whatever they got. I don't know. In Santa Monica. And the second half of the interview is at her home in Beverly Hills. So it reeks truly of elitism from the get-go.
You don't think she relates to the average person with that?
With the Santa Monica. Tyler.
With the dog in the background and the man cleaning the pool?
I do. That's the best. That is put the image back up on the screen for everybody to see. That's the best. The blue-collar worker just cleaning the pool while she's posing on the diving board. You know what it is, though? What's really interesting about elitists? There's a lack of self-awareness there where somebody saw that and thought that was a good idea. They're so out of touch with what it means to just be a regular person. And people always said to me, Jed, when you get a big TV job, you're going to change. You're going to change. And I was like, no. And I didn't. I did not. Everyone knows I'm the same exact person as the person who grew up behind the Staten Island dump. But these people, for some reason, I guess they get so big and they have so much money and they're so used to people like, Jennifer, where do you want to do your interview? That they just forget what it's like to just be a normal person. Like, don't put a guy, blue collar worker, cleaning your pool behind you in an image. It looks bad, girlfriend. It looks bad. I know you didn't make the call. Vogue looks bad. I know.
Well, these are the same people that did the Zelensky photo shoot.
Yes.
You remember how much of a debacle that was.
Ridiculous. And they all do it. Vogue, Rolling Stone always finds themselves in some type of crazy debacle, putting like, what did they put? Like the Tsarnaev brother, one of them on the cover one. I don't even remember who it was. Craziness. So anyway, I decided I was going to read the article. There was a tweet out about it. I think Ben Shapiro tweeted about it. And I said, you know what? Let me see what she said. And what it winds up being, and we're going to read some of it. We have to. What it winds up being is this author decided that she was going to make Jennifer Lawrence into a high-profile political commentator. So she literally takes a sentence from her and then puts a whole bunch of political commentary around it. Now you know the politics of this author. It's utterly ridiculous. Let's take a look at the elitism. So here's one of the paragraphs. It says, Lawrence led me through a sunken den. We're going to go to. This is what it says. Lawrence led me through a sunken den to a large outdoor dining area that was screened in Southern style. As she uncorked a bottle of white wine, she warned me that she was in a mood. Not a bad mood exactly, but a consistently emotional one, brought on by the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade a few days earlier. You already are like, Jed, I'm not going to have the stomach for it. Listen, take a little Pepto. Don't take Pepto, actually. Take a little, what is it, seltzer water? You know, I don't like that big pharma stuff. And just chill for a second. You need to hear it. It goes on, and she talks about how she had great disappointment in the 2016 election. This was one of my favorite lines. The 2016 election had torn open a rift in her family. So it gets into how she doesn't see eye to eye with her parents. She comes from a conservative family in Kentucky. Repairing it was an ongoing process, particularly since having a baby she had been trying to heal. She even discussed with her therapist the recurring nightmares she has about Tucker Carlson. I mean, could you just, girlfriend, I tweeted, girlfriend, get a backbone. Honestly, Rachel Maddow does not keep me up at night at all. If Tucker Carlson's keeping you up at night, you got no problems. That's how you know you've got no problems, because you know what? The rest of the country is up at night thinking about how to pay gas bills, how to fill up their car. How am I going to put food on the table and do this? How am I going to work and afford childcare? She's up thinking about Tucker. Come on. Again, tone deaf. So she goes on, and she says, I just worked so hard in the last 5 years to forgive my dad and my family and to try to understand it's different. The information they're getting is different. Their life is different. She cannot wrap her head around how her family sees the world differently. And that's another sign of an elitist, by the way, because they cannot imagine that you have a different viewpoint. It's like, how can this be? Because she's in a bubble. She's in a Hollywood bubble. She's in a she's in a Southern California bubble that's inside of a Hollywood bubble. So she's just all bubbled up, you know? Okay. Then she gets into Roe v. Wade, and she talks about Trump. You knew it was coming. She says she had not, now this is the author of the article, she had not been entirely in Hillary Clinton's corner, which is interesting they put that in, because even the elitists can't stand Hillary Clinton. That was a little dig. That was a little dig. You know it. Even the left-wing elitists can't stand Hillary. It's amazing. Woman inspires, just nobody likes her. Anyway, but still found it incredibly upsetting that the country elected Donald Trump. This is a quote. It breaks my heart because America had the choice between a woman and a dangerous jar of mayonnaise. And they were like, well, we can't have a woman. Let's go with the jar of mayonnaise. So I read this to you, this part, because there are still people out there who believe that Hillary Clinton didn't win the election because she was a woman. They will not acknowledge that, well, maybe Hillary Clinton didn't win the election because she was a terrible candidate, because she skipped a whole bunch of states because she's an elitist, because she was a liar. She had lied. She had the whole email scandal, and everybody knew she lied, and she signed papers that she lied in. She should be in jail, by the way, for that stuff. You know it. And she was a fraud. And maybe they were tired of the Clinton dynasty, and they didn't want that anymore. No. It's because everyone's a misogynist. The talking points leave certain cable news outlets or the New York Times, and they just like, you know, I'm going to do the gulp. You know it. Okay. She realized she was a liberal. She grew up in a Republican family. Do you know how she realized she was a liberal? This is not a joke. One night when she was 16, she was watching 30 Rock. Don't we all discover our political ideology and identity by watching television shows?
Everything I know about politics, I owe to Tina Fey.
There you go.
Absolutely.
For me, it was South Park.
As a 16-year-old.
Right. And Liz Lemon said
South
something.
Park.
South Park. You know. And Liz Lemon said something along the lines of, I'm not a crazy liberal. I just think people should drive hybrid cars. It made sense. It seemed rational, the author says. I mean, as if liberalism could be summed up by the desire, not, statism, not big government control of your life, not high taxes. No, none of that. Just hybrid cars. Yeah, cool. Okay. Then it goes on. To her, Republican had always meant, why should my taxes pay for your haughty lifestyle? Now she saw holes in this logic. Nobody likes to see their paycheck go away, but it made sense to me. Yeah, for the greater good. I guess it makes sense. The greater good. You hear that all the time, right? The greater good. Remember that during COVID? You had to get the vaccine, even if your doctor told you it was bad for you because it was for the greater good, even though the vaccine didn't prevent transmission. It's nonsense. The greater good is a communist talking point, by the way. That's what communist dictators say. Do it for the greater good. That means sacrifice your individual liberty, your individual freedom, and what's best for you and your family for the greater good. And then you know what? Big thumb. This is the little thumb of government. It's way bigger than this. I have a small thumb. What can I say? Goes right down on you and you're suppressed. Next thing you know, you have no freedom. Oh, but it was for the greater good. And then you swallow that too, right? Because they turn you into a puppet. People are so predictable. It's nauseating. Except for, of course, the top of the top. Remember, even in communist, countries, dictatorships, whatever, there's always an elite. They're protected. She'd be in the elite. Hollywood star. She's protected. She goes on to talk about abortion, and she says that she got pregnant in her early 20s and she intended to get an abortion. She didn't have the abortion because she had a miscarriage. Okay, so she goes on to opine. And she says, I remember a million times thinking about it while I was pregnant, thinking about the things that were happening to my body. And I had a great pregnancy. I had a very fortunate pregnancy. This is when she actually became pregnant the second time. But every single second of my life was different. And it would occur to me sometimes, what if I was forced to do this? So let me turn that little light bulb in her head on for a second. You're not forced. You're not forced. Here's a really great idea. If you don't want, I know this is going to sound, I'm a Neanderthal, but if you don't want to risk having a baby, don't have sex. Everyone's like, Jed, okay, here's another option. Use several forms of protection. Do something. Or here's a better idea. I have it. Get involved in a relationship with someone that you love and that you trust and that you want to be intimate with, knowing full well that a baby could come out of that, and ahead of time decide that if that happens, you're going to take care of that baby. It's a decision you make, and then go have your fun. No. That's not what they want. They don't want personal responsibility injected into any equation. No. That's a bad thing. That makes you accountable for your actions, and liberals can't have that. It's distressing. Okay. Then she gets into guns. And she says, how on earth can anyone have children and not want to restrict access to guns? She wanted to know. I'm raising a little boy. So am I, Jen. So am I. I'm raising a little boy who's going to go to school one day. Guns are the number one cause of death for children in the United States, and people are still voting for politicians who receive money from the NRA. It blows my mind. I mean, if Sandy Hook didn't change anything, we as a nation just went, okay, we're allowing our children to lay down their lives for our right to a Second Amendment that was written over 200 years ago. Oh, the Second Amendment was written 200 years. Oh, forget it then. Let's just tear that Constitution. Let's just rip it up for Jennifer. Here we go. There we go. Sorry, Jesse Kelly. That was your interview questions. And this is the Constitution needs to be living, breathing. Right, of course, because you know why. We've covered it. You know why. Nothing is factual to these people. There's no facts, right? What biology meant yesterday can't mean that today. We're just growing. We're evolving. We're all subjective clouds. You know how this works. And nothing that built the country, just a document that built the country. Oh no, that has to cease to exist. It's old. It's antiquated. It doesn't fit who we are today. Let's just get rid of it. Also idiotic, by the way, to say these things about guns. Again, criminals love gun-free zones. We know this. Criminals love areas where law-abiding citizens don't have guns because they know that their gun will not be met with another gun to stop them. Criminals love areas where you have to wait for law enforcement. You have to pick up the phone and call the police and wait for them to arrive. They love it. They will go out of their way every single time to target areas that are not where people are not allowed to carry guns, law-abiding citizens. So she's brain dead on this issue, as are all celebrities, as are most cable news hosts, by the way, because they don't know anything about guns. Because cable news, by the way, media comes out of New York and D.C., right? What do people in New York, D.C. know about guns? Nothing. And I'm telling you because I grew up there and it wasn't a thing. I had to go do the research. I had to go pick up the phone and call people who grew up in Montana and grew up in Texas and grew up in places where gun culture existed, Arizona, and have these conversations because I knew that I didn't know everything because I grew up in New York. They don't do that. They'd rather just rattle off a talking point to you because they're lazy. They're lazy. Okay, then we get into a little bit more on Roe versus Wade, and she says something interesting about the Supreme Court decision that just came through. Again, she acts as if abortion was banned. It was not. Abortion was not banned. It went back to the states as intended again. And she says she was enraged. This is the author. She was enraged that male politicians and male talking heads would weigh in on the matter at all. It's too personal to a female's existence to watch white men debate over uteruses when they, from the bottom of their hearts, can't find a clitoris. 2 comments on this. First of all, does she not know that the original Roe ruling was made by 9 men? No, she doesn't. The one she likes, the ruling that she likes in 1972 was made by 9 men. Should those men have not had an opinion, or is it just the men whose opinion you don't like? 2, I don't know. She's married. This isn't. Listen, if the guys you know can't find the clitoris, you got a problem, girlfriend. You need to go. I don't know. Maybe he could take a class or 2, because that is not the norm of the experience I've had with men. Just saying. Tyler's all just red in the face right now in the corner. He's like, Jed, don't go there. Oh, I will go there. You know, nothing's off the table here. We can talk about sex. We should do a show about sex. I think we should do a show about sex. We need to find the right guest for that.
I have a sinking feeling that Natalia will be on that day.
Tyler gets very bashful. I think we should do a sex show. Men, women. Maybe we could do a panel. I'm down. You down? You want to hear more? Let's talk about sex, baby. Okay.
I think Vinny has a doll we could borrow if you want to.
A sex doll? Wow. We could get. Let's bring her in. Maybe she talks. You know, the sex doll is very real these days. You ever see those sex dolls now? It's not like your grandparents' sex doll, just a blow up. These things they talk. They have it's weird. Metaverse getting weird. Okay. The last thing that I want to mention about this article is that throughout the article, she talks about how she really harasses her family with these text messages constantly, trying to wake them up because they just don't see things the way Hollywood sees them. So clearly there must be something wrong with them in Kentucky, right? No, not even a little bit. So this is the paragraph that you must hear at the end. Lawrence would rethink and revise and rewrite the texts. Then go quiet for a bit, then fire off more. Boom, 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 boom. She seemed to be animated by a faith that if only she found the right words, she could reach certain relatives in Kentucky and perhaps all women in all the red states. Right, because all the women in all the red states are asleep and don't get it. But you do. You do. Hollywood elitist sitting in a Beverly Hills home who wanted to do the interview in a spa. You get it. You're in touch with what's really going on. Okay. And then she goes on to say that this is an important line, and we'll end here with this one, that the real divide was not between right and left, as so many politicians would have us believe, but between those at the top and everyone else at the bottom, that most Americans had more in common than not. So I actually don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. There was a time when I felt that we all shared a lot of commonalities, and that there was more that brought us together than drove us apart. Post-COVID, I don't feel that way. I really don't. I think that there is a segment of the population that is very comfortable with tyranny. There's a segment of the population that's very comfortable controlling others and being controlled by a big, all-powerful government. And there is a segment of the population that will not have it, that values freedom, that values individual decision-making, that doesn't want to tell you what to do at all and doesn't want you telling them what to do at all. And that is the great divide. And those people see the world differently. They see their role very differently in society. They view personal responsibility and freedom very differently. And I don't know that those two worlds are ever, ever, ever going to meet. So I want to hear from you in the chat. I want to get your comments, your thoughts on Jesse Kelly, first of all. Did you enjoy that interview? Do you feel it's worth it to do? Sometimes we can only get these guests for a shorter block of time because Jesse has 2 shows to do today of his own. I've been there. I know how that works, and it's hard. You know, it's a lot to have them kind of come in, but I think it's worth it. And also, who do you want to see more of? I would love to hear from you as well. Do we have comments in the chat to share, Tyler?
We have a few.
Okay.
Miss Beth, if a woman qualifies to be a firefighter, why does anyone care? No one is forcing women to join the military. They want to. And a follow-up on that says, I know some women who've qualified, this is from Robert, I know some women who qualified mentally and physically to serve. They behaved appropriately, refrained themselves from causing problems. Good luck convincing people other than crazies on any side to join your cause.
So I think the problem is, one, let me address that. There is a segment of the population who does just want there to be a certain number of men, a certain number of women. They want their diversity numbers, and they are all about lowering the standards. They're very willing to lower the standards for women in order to have those diversity numbers met. I think all sane people can agree that's a problem, right? Especially because we're talking about firemen and women, policemen and women, military. These are people that are supposed to run into danger, right? Firemen run up and down flights of stairs. They need to be able to carry a person. I don't know if I've ever met a woman. Think about this for a second. Just think about it. Take your emotions out of it for a second, because it's hard, right? It's very hard to do that sometimes. I get it. Take them out for a second. You've got a 200-pound man stuck in a 4th-story walk-up in New York City at the top, and there's a fire, okay? And a fireman needs to go in and go with all of the gear, get up those stairs, pick that guy up, and bring him down. I don't know any women who can do. I can't do it. I don't know any women who can do that.
I don't know men who could do that, to be fair.
Oh, yeah, they can do it.
Drag down a 400-pound man?
200.
200-pound
man.
I thought you said 400.
No, 200-pound man. 200-pound. Well, at some point it does get, you have to send 2 guys in. But 200-pound guy, there's guys that can do that. Yeah, that's their body weight. I mean, I know guys that are 250. It's different. It is different. So I don't know what the standards look like. I've never done the test myself. But one, all sane people on the same page, they have to meet the standards. I think when it comes to the military in particular, the concern is about what it does to the morale and what it does to the dynamic in there, okay? And think about it from the perspective of, if you had an all-boys school and you threw in some girls, right? You have an all-boys school. Why do people send their kids to an all-boys school sometimes? Well, they do it because they feel like it's a distraction-free zone. That's why they do it. I went to an all-girls school. That's not why my parents sent me. They sent it because it was the best school on the island. But oftentimes parents will send their kids to single-sex schools because they feel like it's less distracting and they can focus on their studies. Imagine that all-boys school, the bell rings, and all of a sudden you throw 20 girls in there. What does it do? It changes the dynamic. It changes concentration. It does. It will provide distraction. There will be an element. Flirting will happen. Relationships will form. It complicates the scene. So I think that what those people are saying is, in areas where you can't afford for that to be complicated, in areas where the primary goal is safety, security, defend, protect, and you can't afford all of those other layers to exist, it provides complication. That's their argument. Truthfully, I struggle with this one a little bit. I do. I'm back and forth on what role I feel women should be allowed to play, aside from the fact that I think everybody needs to be able to meet the standards. And I would honestly rather make this decision and ultimately how I feel about it by talking to people in the military. That's how I think. I don't think I have enough information today to tell you 100% this is how I feel. But I can empathize with that sentiment, that it does shift the dynamic and it may change people's focus, priority. And that's a legitimate concern that I think you have to take your feelings about gender, and maybe you're a woman and you get insulted. There's no time for insults in the military, right? It's just not, none of that matters. These are people that are there to make sure we don't get killed. End of story. They kill the bad guys. They make sure the bad guys don't kill us. The end. So I think we need to look at it through more of a black and white lens. We just can't afford those layers sometimes. But with that being said, I'm not firm on my opinion on that yet, because I haven't had enough conversations with men and women in the military. And I have them every day, but I'm not at that point where I can say this today is 100% how I feel. So, Tyler.
Pro Debates is back, and he said we should have reasonable restrictions on guns. You shouldn't be able to alter guns to fire at a certain rate or have ammo capacities that are extreme. Does anyone remember the Parkland shooting? There was a school resource officer there. The person with the gun didn't save them. Parkland had someone with a gun and it didn't stop the shooter. What about the recent school shooting where when the cops got there, they didn't stop it? It's almost like more guns doesn't fix the problem. And just a quick side note, 94% of mass shootings happen at gun-free zones. Also, 75% of mass shootings happen with pistols. Just a side note.
Tyler's from Texas. In case you didn't know that before, you know it now.
Well, Pat did a long deep dive on this, and we did a bunch of research for what is the problem with guns. And this was just after Uvalde. And it was a lot of information. It's a good watch because it is interesting to see. There are certain regulations that you can put in place, but the majority of these mass shootings happen in gun-free zones. And not to mention, the media deceive you. They say there's been 276 mass shootings this year. But what they don't go to tell you is that a mass shooting is simply an instance wherein 4 or more people are shot.
Right.
It's not 4 more people die or what. That's a mass murder, right? It's just 4 more people are shot. You could have 77 people shot, and they've all been shot in the toe, and they're going to be fine.
Right.
So it's misleading.
I think that point about Uvalde and the law enforcement is an important point, which is that what you saw unfold there was law enforcement on the scene. I mean, it was just gross negligence. It was disgraceful, actually, what went on there. I don't know what the consequences have been for those officers, but they should be steep. So, again, just because you have people armed there, that doesn't mean that they're going to... Right, if they're standing in the hallway, they're afraid to go in. Right, that's a problem. That's a huge problem that needs to be addressed 100%. And you have oftentimes other issues that happen, like people who are repeat offenders, people who should never have had access to a gun to begin with because there is mental illness in their file, or you can look back and then something terrible happens and all of a sudden a million people come out and say, well, I knew that he was crazy because this happened and I knew this, but they don't report it, or there's not a coordinated file that's kept on that person. So of course, somebody with mental illness should not be walking around, legitimate mental illness. And I know the slippery slope on that too, because think about government making a decision as to who's mentally ill. I'd be next because they don't like what I say. So there's that too. But when you talk about capacities and stuff, what guns can and can't do, you have to always just remember something, is that the criminal on the street or the person seeking to inflict harm, they don't have limitations on their guns, right? They're not going to be like, well, I'm going to go shoot up a movie theater, but I need to, one, obey the gun law. Let me make sure that I only have this amount of magazine. No, they're not doing that. They're looking out to produce maximum harm. So when you limit those things, oftentimes you limit it for law-abiding people. You don't limit it for the people seeking to impose harm. And then what happens, right? Like they always say, why do you need, a semi-automatic weapon to defend your home? And I say, well, what about the single mom out living in a rural area with, she's got her son in there and somebody comes with a semi-automatic to her front door and tries to kill her? Like, why do you want her weapon to be less than? So, and I'm not a weapons expert. Like I said, I bring people on to talk about this stuff because I'm not a gun expert. I've shot guns, but I'm not somebody who's really, I didn't grow up with that as part of my culture. So if you want to have somebody on to talk about that, we can. I have a few people in mind who I think would be fantastic to really talk about what's really going on and what would actually fix the problem. I do believe that certain regulations could be put on the books, but again, I'm going to tell you that these people who seek to destroy it, they don't care about any of this stuff.
They're going to do what they did in Canada and mass stab people.
Right.
Or they're going to do what they did in Boston and blow the place up. Or they're going to drive a car through a parade. Or they're
going to get the guns. They're going to get them anyway.
And
they're going to get them anyway.
The point is I want it to be an unfair fight. If somebody's trying to break into my home, I want it to be an unfair fight. You bet your ass. Mm-hmm. I want to have 6 magazines available. I want to have 150 rounds, right? I want to have a scope. I want it to be lit up. I want to have body armor. I want to protect myself and my family. I don't want it to be a fair fight.
That's right.
If somebody's stupid enough to break in my home, like, what do you want me to say? Oh, excuse me, while I get my government regulated,
authorized.
Right, my government authorized magazine.
Yeah.
I'm out of ammunition. Give me a second. Got to change. I can only put 10 rounds in here.
And then what happens to you, And then the people who say, and oftentimes I think the people who say these arguments, like I've had many conversations with New York City liberals. You go into a city like New York and you hear sirens everywhere. There's this sense that the police, who some people have an immense amount of trust in, they're right there, right? There's this sense that you pick up, you call 911 and they're there, right? Because you hear them around you all the time. That's not how it is in large parts of the country where there's, you've got your land and then you've got a long drive to get to somebody else's land. And if you pick up the phone and you call for law enforcement to show up, it takes them a while. It's a very different reality that it's very hard for city dwellers to understand. So you have to, a lot of the people who are often making these cases for Second Amendment rights are people who don't have the luxury of feeling that police are so accessible all the time. By the way, it's false. It's very false in those cities. That's a false sense, because what happens in cities like New York is the traffic. It becomes really hard for the cops to actually get to you. Also, you have defund police movements in those areas. Police don't feel supported and police just kind of don't do their job a lot of times, truthfully, because they don't want to deal with the nightmare of the bureaucracy. So it's a false sense of police readiness. And being able to be there right at the scene right away. It just doesn't work like that. Even when you call an ambulance in a place like Manhattan, it can take a very long time. They have to weave in and out of a ton of traffic. So it's a false sense of security, but it is a sense of security that people have in those cities nonetheless.
Well, and they rank the top 10 major cities. Chicago, 3.5 minutes. Los Angeles, 6 minutes. Seattle, 7 minutes. Dallas, 8 minutes. Miami, 8 minutes. New York, 9 minutes. Houston, 10 minutes. What do you think can be done? Not even 10 minutes. How much damage do you think can be done in 3.5 minutes?
Think about that. Think about New York, 9 minutes. 9 minutes.
And that's average, right?
Right. So somebody comes to your door, causing trouble, breaks the door in. You're there. You've got kids. You've got you let's say you're lucky enough. You get to a room. You close the door behind you. Call the police. You're gonna go now. When this podcast ends, go now and sit quietly with nothing, no phone, nothing. Set an alarm for 9 minutes. 9 minutes. And just put the phone there and just sit. It will be the longest 9 minutes of your life. Just think about that time frame the next time you make an argument that's like, oh, just call the police. A lot can happen in 9 minutes and you don't even want to think about what that could be. So I think people's eyes are opening, even in liberal cities. We had Kim Iverson on the other day, and she was saying that even in Los Angeles, she had been hearing about a lot of people during COVID because the crime was so bad that we're talking about getting a gun who had never talked about that before. So it's, people's eyes are going to be open to that more and more as time passes. It's just not a realistic position to take that it's like, oh, just call the police and wait out 9 minutes. And think about if you're in a rural, please, it could be 15 minutes you're waiting for somebody to show up at your door to offer help. And who's to say they're going to be able to provide help? The other opinion about this, which is really important, is people feel like no one's going to protect my family the way I would. Think about, you got kids out there. Is anyone going to be as passionate to protect your child as you are? No, it's just not, it's not going to happen.
Right. Look at Uvalde. Look at the mom that got uncuffed, 45 minutes, arrested, uncuffed, let go, and jumped the fence and ran in.
And I'm going to tell you straight up, when I saw that, that would be my mom. And she's not into danger. Like, she's not. My mom's not like a daredevil by any stretch. I'm the daredevil of the family. She's not. But let me tell you something. If I or my baby was in that building, my mom would have knocked somebody out, jumped over, gone in there. No questions asked. No question. My dad would have been in there, like, no questions asked. And me, for my child, good luck standing in my way. I don't even know. You'd have to like physically restrain me. And even then, good luck if my baby's behind any closed door and I need to get to him. So just understand that sentiment as well. Do we have any more?
One last thing here. Happy Friday, $10 super chat. Happy Friday. Can we have someone that works at the southern border on the podcast to speak regarding the crisis that is happening there?
Yeah, we can actually. We can have several people come on who work on the southern border. I also am really good friends with Brandon Darby, who runs Breitbart Texas. He's been on the border constantly. He does exclusive border coverage down there and really understands the intricacies of where the problem is, what's going on. He's in constant communication with people there. So yeah, if there's someone in particular you want to hear from, I think that could be a really interesting conversation that we could have 100%. I also want to announce, let me announce this now. Should I announce this now? I have no internet connection. I'm trying to make an announcement. You know something? Technology just doesn't work for me. Okay, do you guys know, have they announced on PBD, have they talked about Minect? Am I saying it right?
Briefly.
Am I saying it right?
Yes, Minect.
Okay, Minect. There is an app. PBD has an app out. You guys know of it. It's called Minect. And it's awesome. Leave it to PBD. He didn't have enough accomplishments that he was like, I need to put out an app. I love you, PBD. He puts this app out. He invited me to join. It's really fantastic. I'm on there now. And what you can do is you can sign up. I have a page. I just did it last night. And there's all different brackets. You can send me a question. There's an option to send me a question, get an answer, a text message. There's an option to do a video chat with me. There's an option to do a group video chat with me. There's all sorts of different options of things. If you have a question about pretty much anything under the sun. I listed different areas where I have expertise. For example, media. Been in the media business for a long time. I know what's going on there. I know what to do. I know what not to do. You want to ask me about a particular show I've been on. You want to ask me about, liberal media, whatever. You want to ask me about academia. I taught in schools for a really long time. You want to ask me about health and wellness and about Lyme disease and how I feel better now than I did before and what that was like. Anything. You want to ask me about my family. You want dating and relationships. I love that advice. I love it. I do. Whatever you want to do, you can get on there and you can make a request and we will chat. And I really look forward to it. I think it's a really awesome idea. So I'm on there today. I'm going to put a little video up later today, just letting people on social know, but I wanted to tell you guys first. I just made my little profile up last night and I would really, really, really love to talk to you. So come on over. Come on over. You never know what I might say on that. Is really this is unfiltered, but that's like, Tyler's like, maybe she'll talk about sex. No, let's not invite the crazy. All right. There's a mirror here. I just caught a glimpse of myself and I was like, what is going on? Jorge forgot to remove the mirror. That's a little creepy. Turn around, you see somebody, it's you. All right. I want you guys to have an amazing weekend and I'm going to be back here on Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern time. I don't know what we're going to do on Monday. I haven't decided yet. I'm living on the edge. We'll be here for 3 shows next week, and I look forward to chatting. We'll do another announcement of Minect on Monday when my phone's working. Anyway, have a great weekend. Go get yourself some Italian food. That's what I'm in the mood for. So
what we talk about is Taco Friday.
I don't feel like tacos today. I did have a delicious hamburger before I came in. I'm not going to lie. It was succulent. It was cooked just, when a burger is cooked just right. Grass-fed, grass-finished, organic burger. From a farm out in Wisconsin. It was so good that I just, it was juicy. Yeah, it was real good. So I had that. So now I'm ready for Italian food. So go out, get some Italian food. And we'll talk on Monday. I want to know if you'd had the Italian food. I would like to know. I'm a foodie. So also, please, in the chat, I like you to share what you've eaten that's really delicious. And if you're in South Florida, if there's a place I need to go, I don't eat out a lot. Every now and then I do. If there's a place I need to go check out, you got to let me know. All right. We'll be back here on Monday. Hope you enjoyed Jesse Kelly. Hope you enjoyed Lawrence and the Vogue interview. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.